With the map contest done now, we have our two winners, Imprisoned from the Billy competition and Strawclutch from the more western competition. I've spent the last hour or so having a look at these two concepts and working out how to adapt them. I think both of the maps are going to be swamp maps, but they both have heavy swamp themes. So there's the few flower aphids on Strawclutch, and there's the heavy use of water rising and falling on Imprisoned. As we don't currently have any swamp maps for free play, I think this is good. That will give us then two maps from the swamp environment. There's also an extra beach map coming in, which is called Sandspit, and that one's a 3v1 map, so they should be, with this next update we put out, there should be 3 free play maps in total, one that's my concept and one from each of the competitions. So it's an exciting time for free play. At the moment there's multiple issues with bridges. Strawclutch didn't include any bridges, which means I don't have to consider that with Strawclutch. Imprisoned is a different story. Liam pointed out an alternative way that it could be done. First of all, I've removed bridges entirely, and the way this is working is instead of bridges, the water is going to lower, which will open up access to ramps down to each other's colonies. So the concept will still be intact. So I think the essence of this map can still be kept, whilst making changes to remove the fire ant bridges for the reasons we've stated before. Imprisoned also mentioned the amphibian attacks, and they are not currently built into the free play system. We're not going to have that for now. Also, I'm connecting the colonies. The northern 2 colonies are going to be on a single island together, but they'll have a barrier between them unless you're allied. So if you're allied, you'll be able to get access. I think all these things will make this a very unique free play map. Currently working on map Imprisoned. It's been through a fair few iterations at this point. We've had a bit of a nightmare with the bridge building systems. Well, no, I said there's no bridge building in this, but it's got water, and we're going to use water to separate the colonies. The idea being when the water's low, the colonies have good, quick access to each other, and then when the water's high, you've got to go around the outside to deal with anything. I've been discovering some of the limitations of the movement system as I'm going with this. It's unfortunately led to the map being redone to some extent several times. So it turns out that I cannot make an island on a map which doesn't have a colony on it. Bit of a funny limitation, but the movement system basically judges whether or not a colony can get to that location. Just any colony, any of the colonies on the map. If a colony can get to a certain location, it allows a lot of the movement commands to work, or a lot of the get point commands, such as when you're harvesting food, like get the location where you're harvesting. That one wasn't working as soon as the water cut it off from a colony. It was saying no colony can reach this. There shouldn't be any harvesting here. So the fish, like the fish in the pine cone being harvested, the ants they were just hanging around it, not harvesting, and it was just constantly saying could not get a point to harvest, could not get a point to harvest. Because what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make it so there's 4 different islands, one with each colony on, as the water rises, and then so at the highest height, each colony's on a separate island, so that which will encompass quarter of the map. Then when it lowers once, you can go around the very outside to fight each other, and then when it lowers again, you can go across the middle to fight each other. However, I'm worried now that I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to discover that if there's not a colony on every island, it's going to break. Okay, I've run some tests, and it seems we're okay. So the current iteration of the level should be fine. So I'll explain. I've been through several iterations here trying to come up with something that will work but keep the spirit of the map. I think I've finally got to something. Basically, the The issue is that there has to be a colony on each section, but the colony doesn't have to be in the game. So as long as there is a tunnel exit in that area, it will work. Funnily enough, I could actually probably use that as a hack to create islands if I ever really wanted to, by adding unused colonies into free play games. But essentially, the way it works, and you'll be able to see this a lot easier if I move the water. So the game starts with the water at this level. I haven't finished shaping the terrain yet, but at this level, basically everyone has their own little quarter of the map, and you can't fight each other at this point in the game. So the minute I've got it set, the timer set to 10 minutes until the water lowers, but I might change that depending on how it feels. That's the first water height. It then drops by 1. This is what it's going to actually be like. So at this point there's ramps between the colonies, so you can actually attack your neighbours at this point, but it's a long way round. But maybe you could set up a pincer attack ready for when the water lowers, so you could prepare to attack a colony by setting up an army here, preparing for when the water lowers to the lowest level, which is that. All that really does is open up access across the middle. So at this stage in the game, the combat becomes a lot more intense because you've got much shorter distances between colonies. So yeah, there's like 3 phases of the level. The water will go down like that, and then it will rise up again. That is where we are with this map. Right, I'm going to carry on. Like I say, these don't have to be particularly accessible because these are not meant for the phase of the game where you're going to be intensely attacking each other. You'll notice there's a lot of other free play bits and bobs at the bottom. Archipelago is one that I was working on, which is bridges in. That one I don't think is going to see the light of day for quite a long time because bridges aren't worked in yet. The way I actually designed it was I made the AI colonies their plan for their base, and then I shaped the underground around that. So if you notice, it's a series of small hexagons. Quite different. I thought it was a bit different. Leave this here now. So see you later. With Strawclutch, there's not so much that needs changing. There was a mention of flooding in the map notes. Having a think about it, colonies that don't have access to aphids are going to have a rough time anyway. So I think it'll be hard enough to harvest from the rest of the map anyway, especially as the only access to the lower level is via a ramp which is in between the 2 colonies, so it's very easy to cut off your opponent. I think this map could take a little iterating to get right. There's a reasonable chance it just won't be fun in its first iteration, but hopefully we can get some community testing on these maps and we can adjust the map accordingly to improve the experience. I'm sure there'll be more changes as I come to put them together and start to realise any problems. Now, the concept for this one is it doesn't involve the water, so there's not going to be so many complicated, different moving parts going on. In the notes by the person who submitted it, there was talk of flooding. It's definitely not the main focus of the map. I think there's enough going on with this map so that it doesn't need the water level moving. Also, that kind of steps on Imprisoned's toes. So I'm going to leave that out, and this can just do the kind of central focused fighting. So there's our central square. The map also has raised edge here. Map document, the top and bottom aren't mirrored, but they almost are. So I think I'm just going to mirror it. We'll have a look at a bullfrog. Drag it in just for get a size comparison. Right, I can bring the nests closer together if necessary, but for now that's probably fine. One of the reasons I like this map is because the design of it includes the preset landmarks. The landmarks that are on the map if you're in skirmish mode, or if you turn it on in free play mode. But that basically creates a style of game of its own. So the map kind of has its own style of game. Fortunately, we never built undo into these tools, so I can mistake needs to be manually corrected. The next free play map I do, I'm going to do a non-symmetrical one. Pretty much everything other than dunes has an element of symmetry. Towhead is kind of sort of, but the starting positions in Towhead do try to be fair to each colony. However, I don't think that's necessary in all maps. The dunes has an interesting dynamic because of that. But anyway, that's the basic layout of this. Nice and simple. Okay, so that's the basic layout. There's still loads that needs doing. Probably show the placement of the preset landmarks on this one, because that'll be interesting. But yeah, that'll do for now.